About 12 years ago when I was a child, my parents and I lived in an apartment that was built in 1905. These apartments used to be a brothel. It is basically a mansion with 8 units. We lived in Unit 2. I am a night owl and I stay up as late as possible, so I'd hear a lot of bumps in the night, if you'd say. One night I heard knocking and screaming in the hallway. It sounded like wrestling, and then after 10 minutes or so, the noises stopped and an ambulance came. The next day, my parents told me that our neighbor choked out his roommate and that he had died last night. The craziest part about it was the fact that he didn't even go to jail. He literally murdered someone in the hallway and didn't go to jail. As time went on, this neighbor started going senile. He was a drug user as well. He started jacking off with the door open. Disturbing as that is, he asked my older siblings a spine-chilling question. "Want to see something?" Then proceeded to pull out his dick. Disgusting, I know, but that is just a quarter of the things that went on at this apartment of horror. I was about 13 or 14 at the time this occurred. My dreams are very vivid and often wake me up with loud noises. Yes, loud noises inside my dreams. It doesn't make sense, but it was a frequent occurrence around that time. One day, I woke up to the sound of glass shattering and thought it was just a dream and decided I would go back to sleep. After a couple of minutes of me dozing off, I heard a blood-curdling scream from outside my window. Apparently, my neighbor accidentally fell out of a window from our 5-floor apartment building and crashed into a glass awning. He died, leaving a couple children behind. The woman screaming was his widow, I assume. This is more of a sad encounter, but the fact that I had fallen back to sleep while someone was dying outside haunts me. I can still hear the glass shattering to this day. I have these weird neighbors that have been harassing me ever since I moved in here, from the time I was 13. It's been over a decade of constant surveillance, creepy behavior, stalking, etc. I've called the police on them several times, however, this has done nothing to dissuade them. Less than an hour ago, I went out for a walk and noticed this creepy red van following me. When I got back, they slowly crept alongside the street and pulled in front of their house at the same exact time as I arrived. They do this pretty often. It's like they time their arrivals and departures at the same exact time as me. Not sure what's wrong with these creeps that prey on 13-year-old kids and still won't leave me alone a decade later. I have so many stories about these people. Not sure if this story fits here, but for some reason I just thought about it. Roughly 2 years ago, I look out my window to see a black car with tinted windows pull off the side of the road across the street. 3 people get out, a man, woman, and a small child, about 8 to 10 years old. They go onto the neighbor's lawn and take pictures of themselves in the yard and in front of the house. They get back in the car and leave. I know this was weird because I know it wasn't the neighbors and I had never seen those people before. The whole ordeal of them getting out and then getting back into the car very fast looked rushed, less than 2 minutes long. I was really confused and never seen anything like it. I had just got home and I saw a dog outside my yard. Wasn't one I had seen before, but heard some people down the street yelling for a dog, so I walked up and kind of grabbed its collar after he was comfortable. The people who were yelling down the street were a good bit away, so I had to stand there with the dog for about 3 minutes, which normally wouldn't be a big deal, but there was this random dude who was on a walk at night, and instead of going around me, or at least stopping and saying something, he just stands there. I said hi, and he just kept standing there and didn't say anything back. I couldn't see his face because he was standing in front of a streetlight and it was dark outside, but I got a really bad vibe from him, almost like he was staring right at me, but I couldn't actually tell. When my neighbors got to me, he finally walked off to the other side of the street and just kept walking. I was kind of shaken for a while. Shortly after moving into my apartment, I started having strange encounters with one of my neighbors on laundry night. I'd pass through my neighbor's carport when it rained to get to the laundromat. He stood in the shadows a bit and startled me several times, possibly avoiding the rain. I tried to be friendly, but he would just stare at me smoking his cigarettes and not say a word. Soon it became a regular routine for him, and then the apartment across the way opened up and he moved into that one. I changed laundry to a daytime only event. One night I sat on my stoop on my phone and noticed a red light in the distance. I saw him sitting in the dark with a video camera pointing straight at me. I went inside to tell my friend, who had been crashing at my place for a few weeks, and was freaked out, but relieved about the timing. That night, my friend staying with me went out, and when he was gone, I heard loud bangs that sounded far away. But I used a sound machine to help me sleep, so I couldn't be sure what it was. The next day, we noticed the door wood around the deadbolt was all mashed up. I asked him if he noticed it when he came home, but it was late and he was a little drunk, so he wasn't sure. The maintenance people were very concerned because it looked like someone tried to break in while I was home alone. Shortly after that, I left and got a new apartment. Luckily, my new roommate had an amazing big dog, and when she was out of town one night, I woke up around 3 a.m. to him growling at the window. I went over to ensure it was locked. The next day, my neighbor asked me if I locked myself out, and I asked why. Sure enough, the screen on the outside was all twisted as if someone was trying to break in, but got interrupted by a very big dog. The worst part was I had out-of-state plates, and all my friends kept on telling me to switch it because I was sticking out to the police. I often thought that he tracked me down by my plates and tried again, or maybe I'm just paranoid and these were a series of break-ins looking for money, jewelry, etc. I'm a male. In my early 20s, I lived in a 2-story house. The master bedroom's bathroom window faced the residential street in front. I got out of the shower one day and was brushing my teeth, looking into the large mirror opposite of the window. In the reflection, I happened to catch the sight of my neighbor, late 50s male, across the street sitting in his garage at his workbench, looking at me with binoculars. I did not make any reaction or look his way, just walked into the bedroom, got my scope Marlin 336, eased back into the bathroom and put the scope to the window. He kept looking for a few more seconds, did the classic double take. Upon realizing that we were both looking at each other through high-power optics, he placed the binoculars on his workbench and walked away. Never caught him doing it again. I assume he had been peeping on my girlfriend as she often took showers at my house. The rifle wasn't loaded. Edit. I do remember one detail. The event happened in probably 92 or 93. When I returned to the bathroom with a rifle, I didn't immediately point at the guy. I gave him the benefit of the doubt by getting back in front of the mirror. Sure enough, the binoculars came right back up. I moved out of view again, then eased back into the picture with the raised rifle. He lowered his binoculars, but brought them right back up again to view a scope 30-30 pointed his way. I lived in Japan for about 10 months a couple years back as part of a study abroad program as my placement year for university. I lived in Hiroshima, and pretty much every Japanese person I met was exactly how you would expect them, generous and respectful, all except for one old lady who just happened to live in the apartment right next to me. It was about a month after I had been in Japan. I'm originally from Northern Ireland, so it was quite an adjustment to make. Our group of gaijins decided we were going to the Saijo Sake Festival. This is a huge sake, rice wine drinking festival that, from what I understood, everyone gets extremely drunk at. As men of fine taste and culture, we sampled many different kinds of sake from all over Japan and got rode off beyond belief. We all got on the train home back to our apartments. I can't remember shit apart from calling my girlfriend at the time and passing out on my futon. Normal stuff. Skip to 6 a.m. the next morning when my loud fucking doorbell wakes me up. Keep in mind, this apartment is extremely small, so the noise is extremely loud. I check the time and am confused as anything, but assume it's just my friend from downstairs who wants to talk about last night. I look through the peephole in my door and see a police officer standing there. First thought that goes through my mind is, Taylor, what the fuck have you done when you were drunk last night? But at the same time, I was sure I had just fallen asleep right away. I talked to the dude using the translation app, and he basically tells me that there has been a noise complaint. Strange, considering the fact that all I did was make a phone call and fall asleep. Anyway, the guy sees how confused I am and kinda realizes there must have been a mistake and leaves. I'm honestly still drunk and just super confused, and the day carries on as normal. Next morning, 6 a.m., doorbell rings. I already kind of assume what it is going to be this time, and what do I see through the peephole this time? 2 police officers. Same convo goes down, and I convince them that there's been no noise. I literally walk them into my apartment and show them how I fell asleep watching Netflix. They tell me at this point that it's my neighbor, who I never met, is making the complaints. At this point, I think she's just a bitch, or maybe racist. I ask the guy at my uni who takes care of all the foreign students about this, and he tells me that I'm getting moved apartments to a room on the floor below. I'm pretty pissed because I've settled into my new space, but whatever. He plans on coming tomorrow morning with the landlord to move my shit out and check that my new room is okay. Ever get it when you're woken up by something in the middle of the night and it really fucks you up? I went to sleep on a good time that night and prepped for people helping me move my stuff out. So naturally, at 3 a.m., I was fast asleep. Then suddenly, ding ding ding, about 20 times. My doorbell is just constantly ringing. It's fucking deafening, and of course has woken me up straight away. I can't even begin to tell you how scared I was. Couldn't even move. Didn't want to. After about a minute of what felt like incessant noise, complete silence, I make my way to the front door to look through the peephole, and I see nothing, but I just know that it's my psycho bitch neighbor. Nothing else happens, and I eventually go back to sleep. I wake up the next morning still kinda shaken, but it's cool. My boys are coming around soon. I kept walking out the front to check if they were downstairs and quickly closing my door behind me because I don't know what this woman will try if she sees me. I walk into my room and slide the door to my balcony open, and there I see her for the first time. She literally wrapped her fucking body around the fence that separates our balconies whilst keeping her footing along the side and just staring right at me. We stare at each other for a second, and then she quickly whips back around to her side. Literally 2 seconds later, my doorbell rings, and I'm just like, nah, that's impossible. That's some demon shit. I'm so fucked. Thank God, it turns out to be the people to help me move my stuff, and I tell them what's up and hastily move downstairs to my new room. I was able to avoid her from then on, outside of her turning up to my new room once and asking if the police had came there. I guess the police had decided to start ignoring her calls, so crazy ass old lady, let's not meet. I'm a female and 22. I moved into my own place in the city about 3 months ago. First time living on my own, and I'm in the heart of downtown trying to pursue acting. I have 2 neighbors down the hall, both male. One is around 40 and the other one is somewhere around 70 or 80. We call the 40-year-old 40 and the 70-year-old 70. Okay, these 2 have been fighting nonstop for the past 2 weeks. Like 40 is banging on 70's door, yelling his name and saying things like, "You a bitch. You stop yelling or open this door and stop being a bitch." And 70 will literally make threats like, "Stop banging on my door or I'm gonna kill your family," and starts loudly mocking the noises of the knocking. Anyhow, when I first moved here, 40 kept asking if I was single or married. I do have a boyfriend, so obviously I told him that, and he within seconds went from trying to flirt with me and being kind to pissed and telling me to get my dog to stop licking his shoes or whatever, and storms off. Fast forward a week, he sees me and asks me again, Again, I tell him that I have a boyfriend, and he calmly says, "Nah, that's okay, I feel you, girl." So I walk off. And again, a couple days ago, this time a lot weirder, he says, "Hey, you know I was in love with you, right?" And I responded saying something like, "No, I didn't. We barely even speak." And he asked me if I lost my man yet. I told him no, and he asked if I was sleeping around. I said no, and he asked me how much people I had slept with. I asked why was he asking personal questions to a stranger, and he insisted that that meant that I had slept with a lot of people. I didn't want him to think I was easy to get at, so I simply told him I've had 2 boyfriends and only sleep with people I'm dating. He stormed off and said, "That's a lie. You're lying now, bitch." And I asked him what led him to believe that I was lying. He turned around and told me that 70 told him I had been sleeping with him. Obviously not true. And he said I just didn't want to share the love because he was black. I told him I didn't want to share the love with anyone, that I wasn't dating in general, and he got mad and stormed off yelling, "I'll show you how to share the love someday, girl." And later that night he came past my apartment after yelling at 70 and just said my name by the door. I do not know how to interpret it. My mom wants me to request out of my lease and move into a house down the road. My boyfriend wants me to move in with him. Everyone thinks I should leave. I don't know if it's creepy or what he meant by it, but one of my sisters said it might be good to post it here and get some other views, so here goes. I'd like to add, I don't just go around giving away my name. Everyone in my unit knows me because I work at a grocery store literally down the street. I didn't think the people in the new building would be so different from the people in the last.